Hi, so our group is going to be covering social media. We're going to be covering 5 different topics that we talked about in class. The first one is paradigms, and that's going to be talked about with Tom's video. Then we got systems, which is covered by Oz, AI, which is covered by Dan, politics and media, which is me, and then myths or psychology of social media influencers, which is covered by Alexa. So pretty interesting. Hope you enjoy.
Hello, my name is Thomas Canna, and this is my presentation for GeoCities. GeoCities was a web hosting platform where users could create and host a personal website. GeoCities acted as a network or community where each page would reference many other pages created by other users. This woven network of personal sites was the foundation that makes up social media today. GeoCities was the third most visited site before it was bought by Yahoo. Now, GeoCities was a network, and shown below is how the relationships of each page connect to one another. The bigger letters and words in the image represent pages that were visited more and these words are most represented in GeoCities as a whole. So in all of the GeoCities websites, help, HTML, community, web page are some of the most common words depicted. And so basically the most shared websites were essentially tutorials for how to create these GeoCities. So it was an ever-expanding network. And so this GeoCities platform was created in the 90s and was pretty much the foundation for social media sites today. So GeoCities fits into social media because it was one of the first forms of it. It was established in 1994, and today social media consists of frameworks that allow individuals to build platforms. And so that's essentially what GeoCities did as early as 1994. So GeoCities was widely popular until it was sold to Yahoo, as I've said. But before it was sold, it was the third most visited website on the internet, and it definitely attracted a lot of attention to the internet and drew people away from the current media platforms such as TV and radio. So it definitely drew people from, I guess, group run or management run TV and news stations to more individualized outlets for media. And so that's kind of where we are today. So I would argue that during the development of GeoCities, a paradigm shift happened. So we went from TV and news radio stations to individual networks and platforms that sort of could broadcast their own opinions, their own news of sorts. And so GeoCities shifted social media to become more individualized. And so GeoCities, because of this, is known to be the precursor of social media, and even many sites like Facebook, for example, had their roots in GeoCities before the site actually went down. And you can still find archives of these early websites on the internet today using Wayback Machine and other sources. And so now we have some of the features and functionalities that are similar between GeoCities and current social media outlets. So one of those features is the use of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Users share pictures and videos, and people can subscribe to their preferred media, whether it is an individual or a group of people. Now, all these features and functions are very important because these are all essentially identical to the ones used in Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and many others. Especially the subscribe feature that is in all of these websites today is really applicable to GeoCities as well, because users could go back or favorite their most visited sites and check back for news or to read up on the latest takes of a certain topic, depending on what GeoCity website they were looking at. So for the new social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter all use the same base. Like I said, with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, they're able to create ads, they're able to create videos, they're able to create a lot of functionality that users use, whether it's to track their following or to upload new updates to their channel about their daily lives or their views on topics. So some of the features that the new age social media has that GeoCities doesn't are AI to create algorithms to personalize the feed that users have within their apps. For example, Instagram uses AI to generate an algorithm to show you your feed, and it sort of predicts what you might like based on the ads you interact with or the social media platforms that you follow. They also utilize the advantage of having shorter videos, which cater to shorter attention spans. And all of this sort of goes around the idea of ease of access and making things more at the user's fingertips. Whereas GeoCities required a lot of research from each user to really get the most out of each resource or GeoCity website. And so the users had to do a lot more work going through other pages, learning how to create their own platform themselves. And I think a lot of that isn't shown in Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. It may be documented in videos, but you don't see a lot of the behind the scenes editing that takes place if it's videos that they're uploading, or sort of management of the structure of a page. Whereas GeoCities was very open source, and it was seen more as a community that everyone was a part of rather than a network of many different communities. And so here is an example of a GeoCities webpage. It is a pretty standard webpage with some low quality graphics, but it has a lot of interests of one person slapped together in a certain amount of pixels. And you can see a lot of these on the website listed below, and it sort of carries a sort of it carries a sort of theme to it that is very unique for each person that creates a website. So here you can see a collection of old GeoCities websites, which for some sites is just a simple collection of GIFs and images along a background. So for example, this page is mostly CSS. It just has a lot of graphics that are impressive and cater to an audience that the creator of this website is targeting. Now if you go down, you can see differences. Some have different themes, some have more links, and some are fishy. But yeah, so the differences in each of these websites are pretty evident. Some have cars, some have large areas under construction, and this is actually a very popular theme, websites being under construction. Due to this being such a new field and that everyone was sort of having their own DIY project, lots of websites had under construction areas, and it was seen as common, whereas nowadays if you go to an internet site, it is almost unheard of for Instagram or Facebook to have a section that's unfinished but available to the public at the same time. And then this is just a motley of very small individual websites. Yeah, all of these are, some are functional. This one's a calculator and produces music. But yeah, so these are examples of GeoCities websites, and they're all
the use of social media and digital devices has made the web look and feel like the real world. And to some, it is their world. To the content creator, or the influencer, or the social media marketer, all have the same driving force: money. The monetization of social media platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok has quite literally reproduced a simulated economy, a virtual world, in which the currency isn't based on any commodity except for the user's time. And with that, the division between reality and image gone. This isn't anything new. Philosopher Jean Baudrillard has pointed out that our current society has replaced all reality and meaning with symbols and signs, and that the human experience is really a simulation of reality. Far before social media platforms dominated the world, he was able to prophesize the transformation of reality into simulation and simulacrum alike. He thought that there were 4 stages to reproduction. The first stage is a faithful image or copy of the original. Think pictures and video capturing the world as it is. The second stage is a perversion of reality. The third stage is pretend reality. And the fourth and final stage is no reality at all, but just pure simulacrum. To Baudrillard, what we encounter as everyday consumers is a far cry from truth itself. We digest and process daily simulations of actual events or ideas. This he calls the hyperreality. It's the hallmark of our times to spend more than half of our time dissociating within the bounds of technology and repackaged stories, and social media is no different. Social media is by and large the best example of this hyperreality. Early social media captivated the world by allowing users to share and reproduce faithful images of reality, say, pictures of your children, your house, yourself. The signs here are the pictures, and they still really do reflect something real in the world. Little did the public know, this was but the first phase of simulacrum reproduction. Soon after, we saw filters. People could now have their image, can now alter their image. They could have dog ears, blue eyes, clear skin at a moment's notice. But this was nothing short of a perversion of reality to hide and change what is real. Social media has invaded every aspect of our lives. It isn't just people who have accounts now. It's brands, organizations, and governments. It's crazy to see that nearly 100,000 people follow the IRS on Instagram, which, by the way, whoever manages the account does an awful job, much like the IRS themselves. But all of this is to say that people and not people alike can now build their own world, and the inhabitants are their followers. And worst of all, the ability to make money off of the virtual world, off of followers, is essentially creating value from nothing. If we weren't already confused about money's role in our world, then this surely challenges our understanding about the relationship between money and value, for there is no real product or service offered. Instead, users are the product. Furthermore, hyperreality is significant as a paradigm to explain current cultural conditions. It can explain consumerism because of the reliance on sign exchange value. For example, brand X shows that one is fashionable. Car Y indicates one's wealth. And advertisers understand this. They no longer care to sell quality. Instead, they sell an image 3 times removed from actual reality, that you can be just like this person or you can have this lifestyle. Under these circumstances, the virtual world is beginning to compete for time, resources, and attention with the physical world. Social media ad revenues reached $41.5 billion in 2020. Advertisers are shifting from traditional marketing and using sophisticated methods and complex techniques to retain users on the platform for as long as they can. Many people have developed new behaviors because of this hyperreality. When we first meet someone, we no longer care to ask for a cell phone number or where they live. Instead, we ask, "What's your Instagram?" or "Do you have a Snap?" or we skip this question entirely and add them after a quick search. This speaks volumes not only with our obsession with social media, but how we're more concerned and interested in the online persona over the real person. We do this as if the online personality will give us a gauge, an insight, a look into the real person. However, if we're being honest, our online persona can quickly take place of our real personality. We act differently than we do in person, and that's precisely the point and problem with social media. It does provide an escape, but when the escape comes at the cost of our time, personality, and health, then it becomes a problem. Frequent social media usage has been linked with depression, anxiety, and feelings of loneliness. How ironic for platforms that promote and advocate communication and fun. Some become more occupied with what to post, with what their friends are posting, with what some celebrity is posting over their own lives. How can this be so if none of it is real, unless we knowingly accept and participate in it as if it's real? Social media is a simulacrum. People have built up personas and brands and share art, selfies, memes, and cute political infographics, all which do nothing but contribute and perpetuate the simulation. Here on these platforms, it exemplifies how self-absorbed, selfish, foolish we are before others. At least now we have a place that rewards that behavior. Before, there was work to be done to have a friend. It was work to create a personality. And now anyone can have instant friends or create a personality at the touch of their fingertips. Whether it's true to who they are matters very little or none at all, especially if it's done for money and fame. The simulacrum precedes reality. I think we often forget that nothing about a creation will tell us about its creator, but all of this raises some questions. Is this simply the price we have to pay for these platforms? Do we want these platforms? And is there anything really wrong with living in this simulacrum or simulation like Baudrillard thinks? Personally, I think the question is, the answer is very complicated.
Hi, everyone, and this is Dan. I'm here to talk about the effects of social media influencers on young followers. So first, we're going to start with beauty filters that came out at first on Snapchat and Instagram. And, they're fun. They make your face look a little better. They make your eyes look a little better. They blush your face. They remove blemishes. They smooth your skin, that type of thing. So they're fun to send to your friends. They're fun to, just to take the selfie. So here's what they look like generally. I think this is a good example of how a filter really makes a difference, especially now in a world where the filters are super advanced. And now they're really convincing. So again, this is a good example. I think this is a good example. So this can be harmful in a way. I think it might create unrealistic imaging for young followers. There are also people who go so far as to weaponize this. There are women in their 30s and 40s who use these filters, and they use it to create profiles as younger people on social media. There are even people who make OnlyFans accounts and just constantly use these filters to look like they're younger girls if they're a 35-year-old woman. But that particularly is a little bit outside the main point of this video, which is that social media can negatively impact mental health, especially in younger users. So there are studies that have been done on adolescent males and females which show these negative impacts. They're cited in the video, but they mainly they might affect body image, self-esteem, overall like depression, anxiety, and those related mental health diseases. There are also studies that show that eating disorders are on the rise, but with that, it's not clear that it's specifically from social media alone. There could also be COVID related factors like, being home for 2 years if you have a relatively harmful relationship with food anyway. But anyway, so there are many different types of influencers, and I'm going to focus on the two most superficial types, which are beauty influencers and fitness influencers. So, like I said, these things can create unrealistic standards, both in fitness and in the beauty industry, and they promote unattainable physiques, unattainable looks. So I think it happens equally in these two spaces for both men and women, especially in fitness. So as far as male Instagram influencers in fitness, you kind of know the type, dudes who use lighting and angles and taking pictures mid-workout, which makes a big difference, and also just editing their pictures. And they look super ripped and they're super muscular. And in reality, they may not actually look that way. Or if they do, it was for a brief period in time while their muscles were full of blood during their workout. And then they go home and look less good. So here's an example off the top of my head. This kid, Cornelius Masterson, he's on TikTok, he's on Instagram, looks super jacked. Again, uses lighting, uses filters, uses picture editing. So the harmful thing of what someone like this does is a lot of the time the influencer is not honest about what they actually do. So right now there's not in like epidemic, but there's a large number of really young men, essentially boys in high school ages even, who are taking ridiculous and dangerous supplements such as steroids and SARMs and other things just to try to look like this kid or other people. So that's obviously extremely dangerous, extremely ill-advised. Personally, I never got that far, luckily, but I do have personal experience with the social media aspect of it because I used to follow bodybuilding pages and I like to work out myself. So I kind of realized what was happening with my own mental health about like physique wise and how I look. So I took a step back from social media a bit. So going back to filters combined with real products and like literally straight up Photoshop, my prime example would be Kim K, who obviously has plastic surgery. It's also well documented that she does not post natural pictures on her Instagram, where I think recently she actually did on accident, and then it was quickly taken down and replaced with an edited picture. There are also tons of female celebrities who get caught with Photoshop. Not that men don't, but it's most common with female celebrities. So as a result of this, now you might see young girls who are getting lip fillers and breast implants and Brazilian butt lifts. So I'm not necessarily a hater, I still think you can do what you want, but to me, these are extremely expensive and extremely unnecessary risks, especially at such a young age. So this relates to our class specifically when you talk about AI and the algorithms that social media uses. So we obviously discussed a lot of that in class, how Facebook could literally make you depressed if they wanted to. So the way this applies now, also here's a picture of Jen Selter, a female beauty and fitness influencer. Again, you see she uses her butt in her videos, in her pictures. She uses her fitness, whatever. She may not really look like this. I don't know. I've never seen her in person, but again, this promotes an unrealistic image. So anyway, back to what I was saying about the algorithms is if you're liking this girl's pictures or if you're liking this dude's pictures and you follow them, the algorithm is realizing this, obviously. So they're going to keep feeding you people who look like this and people who live like this. So I think ultimately you can dig yourself into a deep hole, and it gets deeper and deeper the more you interact with these things. Because once you already feel bad about yourself, you might keep watching for tips and tricks and you want to learn from them how to look like them, when in reality they could just be straight up lying to you, or not lying but omitting truth on what they do, what they take, etc. So again, that's how it relates to AI. Another topic it relates to, which might already be covered in another video, but I think there's a myth of the perfect body, or the myth of how to get the perfect body, where things like this have just been normalized, where there are people who think they have to look this good. Like, this is a professional bodybuilder on a stage in a photo shoot. Same thing for Jen Selter. Like, this girl is getting paid to exercise and take pictures, and she knows her angles. So all these things being said, I think that's a myth that you can get like this. I think it's okay to not look like this, but there are obviously people who either don't realize or are already too far into their own mental health issues that they can't escape it. I literally just realized that my screen sharing has been paused, so I'm gonna unpause it and show you Jen Selter. I have no idea if you could see her before I just unpaused it. Also, here's more of Cornelius Masterson, that picture I was just talking about. He's a literal bodybuilder. Here's him in a competition. So again, to wrap it up, I guess, I don't know what time I'm at, but I think social media is really good in a lot of ways. It connects a lot of people, but I think it's extremely important to be careful as a follower. It's almost like being an informed consumer in the real world. You need to be an informed follower. So you need to watch out, because again, there are studies that show that social media might be negatively impacting, especially in young men and women, or adolescents, or a younger age group. That again, the beauty and fitness industry is just completely unrealistic, and it's always been in a way, but now more than ever now, because of social media, where you can just open your phone and see people who are literally unrealistic and not real, and the urge to compare yourself to that is very real. So thank you for your time. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I hope this was 8 minutes. Thanks, Melinda, for editing these, or Oz, or whoever ends up doing it. Thanks, Professor McPhail, for a good year. Dan out.
So I decided to do my portion of social media on politics, because when I got off of social media, it was during a very politically charged time, back last 2 years ago now, June 2020, during the BLM movement, when George Floyd was killed. And I felt incredibly overwhelmed and confused and didn't know where to get my sources of information from. I decided to just turn it off completely for my own sanity. During that time, I was also studying for the MCATs, I believe, so I I just had to sit down and focus on what I was doing. So I remember during that time thinking, why am I given the platform to speak about any of this? Like, who cares about what I have to say? Who cares about this one person, this one white woman who has absolutely no expertise or understanding of the issues? Why does anyone have to care about what I have to say? Like, why would anyone care if I posted a black square kind of mentality? And of course I supported the movement, the BLM movement. Like, that wasn't a question to me, but I also felt like, how effective is it going to be to virtue signal? There was a lot of confusion into how I should react. And now that I see how important social media is in the use of in showing politics and talking about political problems, I feel like I have a little bit of a privilege that I was able to do that. I feel a little bit regretful that I didn't do as much as I could have possibly. So I'm constantly going back and forth on expertise and whether I have a right to talk about politics in general, because who am I? But then I also have the idea, I should support other people and giving them a platform to speak on, people who normally don't have a platform to speak on. So let's go back a little bit and talk about the credibility that it takes for somebody to have some sort of political opinion that I thought at the time someone needed. And these things include defined by Harry Collins and Robert Evans in Rethinking Expertise. These things include credentials, the track record, and experience. So credentials, as it sounds, is important for showing that you are an expert in something, but it doesn't necessarily mean much. So they criticize saying that you can't have credentials in being fluent in a language or having moral judgment or political judgment, which I think is very interesting and true. You can't really necessarily put an MD at the end of my name and I can have like a good political judgment. That doesn't mean anything. The other example or proof of credibility is the track record. So you can have a record of making good, successful decisions, but only in your area. So the example they give is a sheep farmer who's applying their expertise to a technical debate in a public domain. People won't necessarily have a good opinion of this because they don't necessarily have a track record. So in my case, when I if I were to post something political in response to the BLM movement, I don't necessarily have a track record. And the last one is experience, which is self-explanatory, and I think it does provide expertise for a situation like the BLM movement where everyone has some sort of experience and has a way of thinking about the BLM movement and potentially putting their voice out there and being an expert, but it's pretty vague. So if I find it difficult to agree with this one as well. They pose it as like potentially the best way of gaining credibility for a certain subject, but experience, while it is incredibly necessary, I think it's still like too vague of a statement. So I don't know what the best way of gaining credentials for something like this is. However, I do think that after studying a little bit more, researching a little bit more about the use of your voice in social media and in politics in general, there is an important and maybe an obligation that you do use your voice. There was a study done by the Pew Research Center where they talk about, they surveyed Black social media users. They find social media incredibly useful into getting involved with issues that they care about and finding like-minded people. There's the Black Twitter community that is used to organize and support one another and increase their visibility. So perhaps for me, it was a privilege that I didn't need to find a way to organize and get my political opinion out there because I didn't necessarily need to at the time. I think that it's potentially a privilege for me to just shut this off and not have to worry about it. Another example of the positive use of social media and politics specifically is there's a TED Talk given by this woman, Victoria Kabani, and she says that she once didn't have a platform when she was going through college or post-college and had college debt, and she was a waitress. She wanted to get involved in the politics in her local government and local community, but she wasn't given the platform to talk about it because she's just somebody who is just like everybody else, doesn't have the credentials, doesn't have the background to speak on it. And she says that there's endless evidence of candidates now, political candidates, who use social media to create viral videos and collect donations, and they're much more vulnerable with who they campaign to. So a lot of the times candidates will post videos of themselves speaking or whatever it may be, and gain some and be vulnerable with their list, whoever they're talking to, and potentially gain a following. She talks about oppositional research. So this is a political strategy where the opponent will find dirt on their opponent and use it against them. So she brought up an example of a Black governor in Alabama, woman who was running, and her opponent said that she had college debt, and the governor was or this candidate was so does everybody else, doesn't everybody have debt? I'm just a normal American kind of thing. So vulnerability is effective in gaining a following. And And she also argues that it makes governments more transparent. So it gives people in Congress a platform to speak on. So everybody in Congress currently has like a Twitter, or most people do. And elected officials have like a direct dialogue for who they represent. So that's very interesting that there is that kind of direct communication. So with the increased use of social media by political movements and by candidates who are seemingly normal people, there are a lot of positives with having social media for a political use. I wanted to bring up one last thing, which was the Skeptic Check podcast, the Know-It-Alls podcast. They talk about, the general theme for that podcast was experts feel like they can't talk about things that are not within their field because they're very much specialized. And it's funny because they've gone through schooling and they can read an article that's not in their field, but they still feel like they're not well equipped to talk about these type of things. I think that when it comes to politics on social media, most people, because they have experience, can talk about their political stance on social media. I personally feel like I don't have enough experience, or I don't even know where to begin when it comes to talking about politics on social media. I feel very unqualified, but that's potentially because I have this like different type of background and I feel like I can't talk about it, whereas there's people who have zero background, who have not gone to school, who have no idea, feel like they're perfectly okay with talking about these type of things. It's a personal preference, potentially. I do think that I should have more of a political standing on my social media, but I also am of the opinion that social media is just for fun. And that's what it was for me, but then it became political, so then it became weird. I felt like I had to, I felt pressured to. I still feel that way. I feel like back when I did have social media, I just had it for sharing memories and connecting with friends. Like it wasn't anything more than that. So, if I did get back on social media, I would feel some sort of obligation to having a political stance, potentially.
People follow influencers for guidance on social expectations and guidance on self-assurance. The psychology behind conforming to social norms is that when we feel pressure to conform, our brain has high activity in the section associated with punishment. Therefore, we get a signal that we violated something or did something wrong. So when you're an outlier or you're different than the others, your mind makes you feel as if you're rejected. Therefore, you conform to the standards because you don't want to have these negative feelings. As a survival tactic, people tend to crave power and control within their lives. So as a follower, we get to choose who we're following and the content we consume. This then makes us feel as if we're in control and have power. This then sends a positive signal to the brain. People are more likely to trust data and facts if you are said to have an expert level knowledge on the subject. For example, lawyers, doctors, we automatically trust them because of this title. And we assume all they have to say is correct. Influencers are also seen to be high-level experts within their social media field. Their followers trust the influencer because they are seen as having high-level expertise on this respective content. This one is where brand deals come in. Companies use this to their advantage. They have the influencer market their product because they know their following is going to trust them because of their title. And they're going to trust that the influencer actually uses this product on the daily and then it has great reviews. Another big factor is that influencers have really mastered making the meaningful connections with their fan base. For example, vlogging has become very big. This is essentially where you record everything you do during the day and bring your followers along for the ride. For example, you go to the grocery store, you go grab your lunch, you go to the gym, and you bring your followers along. And it kind of makes them feel as if they're spending the day with you. You see them hanging out with their friends, you hear them like communicating with other people, and you actually feel as if you're with them and that you are indeed spending the day with them. So now you have a personal connection to them. Your brain almost acts like they're your friend. And this then increases trust levels. Overall, our brain does not like the negative emotions of missing out on certain things or of not fitting in. So influencers have a strong grasp on how to psych out their following and have them conform to these standards and increase their trust with them. As you could tell on Kylie Jenner's Instagram, she looks as if she has the perfect life. She seems happy in all her postings and very content. You could see that she posted from the Met Gala and a bunch of photo shoots, which she glorifies these events to make her life look better. You could tell her pictures are retouched as her complexion looks flawless. Now, if her followers wanted to reach that level of perfect skin and be like her, they're reaching for a goal that's impossible. Just like every other human being, Kylie Jenner does indeed go through rough patches and hard points in her life. She just chooses not to show those. She only focuses on the positives, which is fine, but it does give her following a false reality of her life. Her following is going to have bad days, and when they see that she just has a perfect life, it's going to make them feel worse about themselves. This is why more and more influencers have started posting more real posts and showing the bad parts of their life, so that way they could connect more with their following. As you could see, that influencer was able to show their true selves. Even in her bio, she was called the acne flaunter. She knows it's there, and she's putting it out there so that way more people feel comfortable in their skin and with their acne struggles. This makes her following feel more confident and more comfortable with the fact that they have acne as well. Whereas Kylie Jenner's following would want her perfect skin that is just edited and retouched. Whereas Alexandra's following knows that it's okay to not have perfect skin and that perfect skin is not attainable. In class, we talked about myths, which are a shared concept that shapes the understanding of the world, and all societies have them. The reading connected to this discussion was the myth of artificial intelligence. In this reading, a researcher, Eric Larson, says that he thinks artificial intelligence is a myth and claims that there's no way that AI research can lead to human-like intelligence. This relates to the psychology of an influencer because they create a myth of a perfect reality. Most influencers only post the best pictures of themselves and show the highlights of their days, like we saw in Kylie Jenner's Instagram. They don't show any negative feelings or hardships that they go through. This shows the audience that they have the ideal lifestyle, and people get upset when their life does not mirror the influencers that they follow. The perfect reality is a myth and unattainable, just like Larson said artificial intelligence is. Something that a lot of influencers use on TikTok are filters that give the impression that you're wearing a full face of makeup. This includes lipstick, shaping your face differently to conform to standards, and even giving fake eyelashes. This makes it very convenient to post something looking like you're all done up when in reality you have no makeup on and you could have just rolled right out of bed, giving your followers a fake impression. Thankfully, to try to end all that, there's a new trend where you start with a filter on your face with all the makeup done up, and then you, halfway through the video, you take the filter off and you show your natural face, and it kind of helps put into perspective that these filters do change your face and alter things, and that no one actually looks like that.
The songs on the radio are okay, but my taste in music is your face, and it takes a song to come.
As you saw in that last clip, it was the trend where you have the filter on and then you take it off and you show the reality. And you can see the difference of how much this alters your face and puts on such a large amount of makeup and really makes it look like a totally different person. And then people are thinking that's how people actually look and getting a false sense. Another similar trend is showing you pose and then relax. So people say they were at the gym and they pose for a mirror selfie and they look really good, and then they relax and they don't look like that anymore, but they still look great. That's another way of kind of promoting self-love, and that not everything's as how it seems online.
Bodies that look like this also look like this. And this. Be kind to your body.
The pose first, relax trend really helps girls with their self-image and stop comparing themselves to people online, since, as you could see, they don't look like that all the time. I personally didn't realize how much psychology goes in to being an influencer and all the tips and tricks that you could use to get your followers to feel like more connected to you and even gain their trust. This project definitely made me realize that I should go through who I'm following and who influences me and make sure that they are all true to themselves and that it's not all filters and just the highlights of their life, because everyone goes through hard times as well.